Hey y'all, Corey here from Ensemble, Texas, and in this Texas Nature Journal entry, I want to introduce you to the Anacacho Orchid Tree. The Anacacho orchid is a small tree native to Texas in northern Mexico that's an interesting addition to any Texas native home landscape. The Anacacho orchid doesn't take up too much space. Its spring blooms are prolific and it attracts pollinators. As a member of the pea family, the Anacacho orchid tree is a nitrogen fixer, meaning it converts nitrogen in the air into a usable form for other plants in the soil. Some say its leaves resemble hooves, which explains one of its other common names, pata de vaca. Common names include the Anacacho orchid tree, pata de vaca. Where is the Anacacho orchid tree native? Well, the Anacacho orchid tree is actually rarely observed in the wild in Texas. It's considered to be a rare tree. However, it's most often observed along the Edwards Plateau in Texas and south, ultimately to Monterrey, Mexico. And further west in Texas, the Anacacho orchid can be found in the Anacacho Mountains and as well around the Devil's River in canyons and arroyos, which is right along the Texas-Mexico border. Some benefits of having the Anacacho orchid tree in your landscape. I think first, it brings some attractive flowers and leaves in spring. The Anacacho orchid grows in a way that makes it enjoyable and interesting all the time, but its flowers show up in early spring. And while of course much else blooms in spring, if there's anything, any particular place on your property that's particularly barren during spring, it's a good reason to consider this tree. Next, it's been named an excellent patio tree. In Texas Native Plants landscaping region by region, the Anacacho orchid was described as the perfect patio tree. And I believe that's because of its attractive look and the fact that it's a small, manageable tree. If you plant it close to a seating area, it will be interesting to look at just about all year round and won't be too intrusive. And as well, it attracts pollinators. So the Anacacho orchid could make for a really excellent central focus in a part sun or full sun pollinator garden. While I haven't seen many butterflies visiting the tree, I do see plenty of bees. I've noticed the Anacacho orchid tree installed as a focal point in other pollinator gardens around the San Antonio as well. For one, if you visit Confluence Park's Friendship Garden, you'll see an Anacacho orchid planted there with lantana, mealy blue sage, and autumn sage around its base. As far as planting and care goes, first let's talk about where is the best place to plant an Anacacho orchid. I'm going to say partial sun, shade. The Anacacho orchid tree is an understory tree, so it's most likely meant to grow in some shade. I think we selected a good spot for our tree. You can see we're already partially shaded right now. It's midday. If I were to plant a second tree, I might choose a place with a little more shade than the intense sun that this tree can get in peak summer for about 4 or so hours. The Anacacho orchid is an elegant tree, in my opinion, and it won't offer much shade, and this could be a benefit for lower growing flowers. And it isn't destined to grow that tall. But as well, you should think about drier conditions for the Anacacho orchid. Given its native distribution, Southwest Texas and Mexico, San Antonio here might even be on the moisture side of this tree's tolerable range. So be sure to consider the moisture levels generally of your region, and then as well specifically of your property. Identify a drier location if you can. For what it's worth, our soil is majority clay, which isn't known for drainage, and our Anacacho orchid seems quite happy here. And then finally, consider the south side of a building for winter wind protection. This becomes more important the further north you go, but many sources I referenced suggested planting the Anacacho orchid on the south side of a structure to protect it from cold winter winds. Granted, after this last winter, our tree looked reasonably damaged and we lost all the leaves. Perhaps if I took that advice, our tree would remain evergreen and keep its leaves through the winter, but the tree itself is fine. And you can see here, this is the spring after that very winter I'm talking about, and it looks very healthy, vibrant, and the blooms were exceptional this year. As for additional care or maintenance, if you want a single trunked tree, then you're going to be able to prune the Anacacho orchid into shape, but you need to be careful to not remove more than a third of the bottom of the tree at any point in time, as this can weaken the tree. However, I personally like the multi-trunked look, and I typically always defer to the lower maintenance strategy. As for companion plants in How to Grow Native Plants of Texas in the Southwest, author Jill Noakes suggests that the Anacacho orchid makes a nice contrast to strong form plants such as agaves, yuccas, or nopal and cenizo. I've also seen and come across some suggestions as, again, cenizo, Texas sage, Flamacanthus, black dahlia, Lindheimer moly, Texas lantana, autumn sage, and mealy blue sage. So, what to expect with the Anacacho orchid season to season? First, in spring, depending on whether or not your tree experienced freeze damage over winter, you might have lost all your leaves. But bright green new leaf growth emerges in spring or later winter, for that matter. After leaves comes your blooms, typically white if bought from a nursery. And then finally, you'll see the emergence of green fruits or seed pods start to emerge. These will be the seed pods on which you can harvest later on. In summer, your tree may continue to bloom. It might only bloom after a rain. However, the green foliage remains and the seed pods can begin to brown as the summer wanes on. And this tells you that the seeds are ready to drop and be harvested if you are so inclined. In peak summer heat and sun, the leaves might wilt. If you're establishing a new Anacacho orchid tree, if it's year one, make sure to water the tree deeply in the morning or evening at least 1 to 2 times per week during real peak summer conditions. And then in fall, blooms will most likely subside, but the foliage will still remain. And at this point, all the seed pods should turn brown. In winter, the Anacacho orchid can act as an evergreen, keeps its leaves all winter long in the right conditions. Mine doesn't, and after a couple of hard freezes, the leaves browned and ultimately fell off as things started to warm up. Be sure to not remove any of your tree's apparent freeze damage parts until all the risk of freeze has passed. That can risk greater damage to the tree overall. As for propagation, it seems growing an Anacacho orchid tree from seed seems to be the most promising option. You can collect the seeds in August when the pods have turned brown. You can see some here in spring starting to emerge. Dry those pods out in paper bags for a couple days, and then if you sow the seeds in fall, make sure to protect them in a cold frame. Otherwise, you can sow them directly in the soil come spring. To store the seeds over winter, though, make sure that they are sealed tight, and it's recommended to be vigilant of any potential infestations. In my research, I didn't find that producing an Anacacho orchid tree from cuttings was viable. There weren't many reports of any success. All right, y'all, I hope you enjoyed this Texas Nature Journal entry here where I introduced you to the Anacacho orchid tree. And so there's a list of books and resources that I referenced in the making of this video and in complimentary post at ensembletexas.com. You can find that linked in the description below. All those resources are available for you to check out. I use those along with my working here in my own landscape with the Anacacho orchid tree and observations that I make out in Texas's natural places. Although I will confess I haven't observed an Anacacho orchid in the wild, just in areas where it's been planted and cultivated. And then finally, if you want to learn more about Texas native plant landscaping but don't know where to get started, consider getting my free cheat sheet, Getting Started with Texas Native Plant Landscaping, at ensembletexas.com/freebies. You can find that likewise linked in the description below. All right, y'all.